Everybody, I'm Brohl, the Managing Director of the Techstars Farm to Fork Accelerator. And today we're here with Doug Baker, the CEO of Ecolab.
Well, hello, Brett. Good to be here.
Good to have you. So Doug, it's called Techstars Farm to Fork. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how Ecolab plays across the entire food value chain. What you guys are doing, where you insert yourself.
Well, our expertise is hygiene, food safety, and water technology, really throughout industry. But our legacy is food safety, truly farm to fork. So we are all the way from dairy farms through milk production, through all food production, bottling, through retail, through food service. So we truly are farm to fork providers of technology, know-how, capabilities. We have 28,000 field folks that are walking in over 3 million customer sites in 172 countries every day, making sure that they're using the technology correctly, that they're getting the type of results that they need, which is world-class food safety, world-class hygiene, and at a very low footprint from a carbon and a water standpoint. So that's why we're so darn interested, and also why I think we have some expertise to bring.
So corporate innovation has been a really hot topic for the last decade, really. And I'm curious to learn a little bit more about you and Ecolab around how you're thinking about innovation internally, externally. Why do a program like the Techstars Farm to Fork Accelerator?
Well, I think you touched on a very important point, internal and external. And I would say clearly if you go back 20 years, the focus of R&D was principally internally generated. And if you fought anything, it was bringing ideas from the outside and they would be rejected. I'd say we've evolved hugely, as many other companies have, to understand that we do need to continue our internal innovation. We have a lot of know-how and insight that we've got to leverage, but just as importantly, we have got to have a network of external innovation. And Techstars is exactly that. It does other things for us, which I'll talk about, but from an innovation standpoint, it brings innovators, passion, people who are looking at the same problems we might be, but from a completely different lens because of their background and honestly, their technology capability. And so it brings new thinking into the company, which is always a good thing.
So this will be our third year coming up, and we've done two before, and you've been actively engaged with the startups in the program. And what's your experience been like? Have you had fun with it?
No, I've had a ball. I think it's been fantastic. You know, the interesting part about Ecolab is, we are a company that drives organic growth. It's the number one driver of value, but we're also acquisitive. So in the last 15 years, we've made 110 acquisitions. And so we are always looking externally. And when you're acquiring, typically these are smaller companies with unique technology or unique niches in the market that we hadn't been able to do ourselves. And so we're bringing know-how into the company. So I'm automatically attuned to this. I love it. And I think the advantage of working with Techstars is, it infuses you with the energy and passion that each of the, if you will, owners of these businesses, entrepreneurs, has towards a business. And you learn a lot, right? So you're able to offer some thoughts, but I get a lot more out of this than I give.
Yeah, that's honestly why I love what I do too. It is that you get every time I meet with a founder or an entrepreneur, I learn something new. A lot of roles, a lot of jobs I do, after 2 years you kind of feel like you got it. And this one, I sit with a new founder and it's like, well, hadn't thought about that before. So back to year 3. We're looking for a couple of core themes, or we published a thesis around things we're looking for, and it is broad, but a couple that stand out are technology around employees, safety, compliance, making them more efficient, robotics, big data. Every startup out there pitches big data in their data right now. That's 3, but are any of those stand out to you? Is there anything that's of interest, especially to you personally, or how you're working on it within Ecolab?
Yeah, I think honestly all 3 themes we find incredibly relevant. So safety or employee. The only way you are going to help companies deliver safer food or a safer environment or reduce is you've got to change work habits. And so how you do this, how you monitor this, and how you measure it is an area we've been working on for years. But the more technology we bring to this, the better we are. So we're leveraging digital technology today, but we know there's so much more we can do in terms of enhancing. Even if you go to a healthcare environment, I mean, we have badge systems which know if a healthcare practitioner has washed their hands after coming in contact with a patient and before they see another patient. They want a reminder. And so there's all kinds of work that can be done here. So we are open. When you get into robotics, I mean, we use them internally, absolutely, but we're also working in environments where robotics are becoming an increasingly large part of how people make stuff. And so understanding that is going to be absolutely essential to it. And then data, everybody talks data. Well, we're really interested in how do you use data to create value? And so we have a lot of data. And we're using data today. I mean, I can tell you, what paper company uses how much water for each pound of paper produced in every paper mill around the world. All right, that's interesting, but it's only valuable if I can translate that into helping customers reduce water consumption, reduce energy, and reduce ultimately the price or the cost of producing paper. So how do you make big data turn into valuable information? I mean, we are all ears, and we're looking and working at it, and we love when we get outside perspectives on this.
And I'd love to dig a little bit more into the robotics piece, because that's something of real interest to me across the entire food system. And employees, one of them, there's just not enough people in seats. But we'd love your thoughts to go a little bit deeper on the robotics space.
Yeah, well, I had a fascinating experience, I don't remember, it was a year and a half ago in China. And it was a fully robotic restaurant. So, I mean, they clearly taken it to the nth degree, because a lot of this is an exploration. But this was food prep, food ordering, not so hard, food delivery from kitchen. But the food prep part was really the fascinating. And they really worked to make robotics do as much of the food prep as possible. And the fact that they had this thing coordinated, and it's a one-off installation, right? This is pretty amazing. And so what it really showed is, I think, ultimately, where can this go as we get smarter? We internally are using robotics, and we're certainly doing it as many others are doing in a manufacturing element. I mean, I worked in plants growing up and in college summers, and I would say it was a great experience in some ways. Mostly, okay, I don't want to do this. But it's repetitive, right? We have OSHA, right? We have OSHA for a reason, because if you go like this for hours on hours, your elbow is not going to work very long. And so that's a great law, but the answer often is, how do I change that and mechanize that work so I'm not wearing out human elbows as we go through this work? And how do we learn to do this in a world? Doesn't take humans out of the equation. Honestly, I think it gives them richer jobs. If you go to the jobs our people are doing in plants today, they're trying to organize the work around a certain process. They've got autonomy in terms of changing the workflow. They're the guys that are looking at the systems, doing the metrics and doing the measurement. We are, I would say, humanizing manufacturing through the use of robotics, not really just taking work away. It's an oversimplified story.
Yeah, I completely agree on the it's not taking jobs away from humans. And honestly, a lot of places in the food value chain, there's not enough humans to fill the jobs that are needed already, let alone to feed the world over the next 30 years. There's just not enough of it. And it's interesting of like the hammer point's interesting too. And one of the cool things about robotics, I think, is that they're now moving to the point where they can do things other than that one task over and over again. What are other barriers that you see in the robotics space that are preventing adoption right now?
Well, I'm no expert in this area, but what I would say is, if you go, well, let's just stick in manufacturing, right? It seems, I mean, everybody looks at like rote work. I think the flexibility of robotics and the ability to perform multiple tasks and different tasks at different times is ultimately how you're going to continue to, I would say, expand the use of robotics, particularly in manufacturing. Manufacturing is, if anything, becoming a more dynamic environment. The old Model T days of, you can have any car you want as long as it's black. And I'm just going one car down the assembly line have been long gone. And so what we need to be able to do is at scale customization. And that also means that work's got to be somewhat flexible and process has got to be somewhat flexible to go do that. And so we're seeing increasingly the ability of robotics to do multiple tasks and do them quite effectively. But that whole area, and then when you lay on artificial intelligence, how does it recognize? How can it, if you will, in that one specific area, start getting better and help refining process? So all that work is coming, and we're excited about it. But we also have to, from a customer standpoint, deal with it, right? We're in tens of thousands of plants around the world. And I don't care if this is in food and beverage, if it's in steel or metal making, or if it's in automotive and et cetera. And there you have to design your process to work in an increasingly automated world.
One fun question that I get asked pretty frequently, and I'd love to hear your answer, is if you were going to start a company today, if you were going to quit and say, I'm going to go do a startup, what space would you innovate in or try and do something in, or what kind of company would you start right now?
Yeah, well, we've recently signed up to the 1.5C agreement, which fundamentally says we're going to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and by 100% by 2050, which is very ambitious. We don't know how to do that. And so we're setting sail on a course that we know is vital to Earth, vital to our communities, but isn't yet fully developed because all the innovation's not there. And so that is an area that I would explore. But you know what it's going to take? It's going to take ultimately robotics. It's going to ultimately take how do you leverage big data in a way that helps people understand the outcome and decisions they're making. A lot of carbon we burn doesn't need to happen. So how are we going to help that? But it's going to take data to make that work. And then foundationally, if you're going to change outcomes, you got to change human behavior. So the systems approach around safety and around other operations is going to be vital too, which is why we're so excited about Techstars.
So you talked a little bit about how you've engaged over the last couple of years with the startups. How does broader Ecolab engage and plug in with the startups that come through the Techstars program, but also outside of Techstars?
Well, we have a number of people who signed up to be mentors, if you will, going in. And as I mentioned earlier, I know that our mentors certainly bring some knowledge and some insight, but they get a lot more out of it than they bring. And what we're looking to get out of this is a number of things. So I've already mentioned, sure, we want ideas. How do we help us think innovatively around it? But we're also trying to inoculate the organization, if you will, with entrepreneurial spirit and the passion, and make sure that people feel it and get it. And I think it's really helped. The people that have been involved in this, and it's been a broad array of our team, have really loved it. They've gotten a lot out of it. And so we view this as exactly what we hoped for to begin with. We've made investments in a number of companies. We have partnered with several of the companies coming out. But just as importantly, every interaction's been positive, and our culture is better because of it.
Yeah, it's also been great for the community, and I know I'm deeply involved in the community here, but also broadly, the food tech community broadly too. It's helped raise the profile in the food tech community in the Twin Cities, but also across the United States and across the globe, which is a really important thing for all of us to be doing. And I know that working with the startups on the other side of it, they have had great things to say about working with Ecolab and the levels of engagement. And so I think it's been really good on both sides. But thank you so much for doing this, Doug. Really appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely.